My name is Jim Early, and my question for probably Rob, Judge Leffler, and Ron at least. I'm curious if we're headed for a train wreck, what is the train wreck going to look like? And what I'm thinking of is, prior to the war in Iraq, a lot of experts predicted there would be an insurgency, and a lot of the trouble that happened would happen, and they were ignored. Prior to the Katrina disaster, a lot of experts predicted exactly what was going to happen there, and they were ignored. I've heard late last year and earlier this year, some financial wizards predicting exactly what's happening now, and they were ignored. So what are we ignoring in terms of where the train wreck could end up if nothing changes?
So I'll answer a little bit about the economic conditions and forecasts, and I wouldn't characterize what we're headed towards or in right now as a train wreck. Certainly it's a huge crisis for our financial system that is having a direct impact on what is the real economy or the Main Street economy, and that we are in a period where we are in one of those classic recessionary periods. But the consensus forecast for the next couple quarters, 3 quarters, is that would be a relatively mild recession compared to some of the recessions we've seen, let's say during the early 1980s. At this point, consensus forecast is that it wouldn't go as deep as that period back then, which I can remember. And so it is a time, too, where there will be a lot of investigation into how we are going to be regulating the financial system in such a way as we can balance the needs for providing a strong financial system and still allowing for innovation and use of innovative ways of being able to provide credit. And I think that we've got people on top of this, particularly looking at our own chairman, Ben Bernanke, who will be leading an effort that I think will pull us through. I do have confidence. In the meantime, we will have shorter budgets in our public services, and our own personal personal finances are going to be tighter. And sometimes that can be beneficial because it makes us think about where we want to put that next dollar. And so during this period, it can be very effective to talk to our policymakers about putting dollars in prevention and moving policy forward. If we can't put more money in now, when revenues start increasing again, because they will, that we have put mechanisms in place so that those dollars are funding prevention.
I would go so far as to say that I think that you don't have to look into the future and say, what's the train wreck going to look like down the road? I think that there's plenty of data that suggests that in many respects we're already there. There is really, really good data that shows that there is a progression in our justice systems, from the child protection system to the delinquency system to the adult criminal system, which I would say in the loss of human potential is already a train wreck. If, and many of our citizens are not terribly compelled by those sorts of arguments because they're kind of soft, I would also suggest that you may have remembered the election of 2000, where the catchphrase was, every election's got a catchphrase, I'm going to take Social Security and put it in a lockbox. Well, that's how we're going to solve this problem. I don't see a lockbox anywhere. But it's still a problem. Now, how a society that at least gives some nodding acknowledgement to the concept of enlightened self-interest can continue to allow the people who would be productive members of society but for the homes that they were born into and the terrible circumstances that they experience as children, can allow those people to not be productive the way they could. Let's forget about the human potential. Let's just forget for a moment about dreams and hopes and joys and sadness. Let's just talk about people as just little working machines. And people that work and they make money and it goes into the Social Security lockbox. We have got kids in our system that are not going to be productive little working machines. And as my enlightened self-interest is, I said, I want all those little working machines that I can, because I want to retire. And if I have to pay some more up front now to get those little machines going so I can retire, by George, that seems to me to be a pretty good deal. And I would suggest, with regard to the question about, you know, how do we move from here? I mean, once again, the Federal Reserve, Mr. Rolnick, Mr. Grunwald, it's been out there. Legislators know what this is. You hear anybody talking about it? Is anybody who's in your legislative district, any legislators saying, we've got this, we should be doing this? Anybody heard that at all? No. Okay. Why? Because there's no votes in it. I would suggest to you that if you're going to start, this group is wonderful. This group is going to go out, and if somebody said that, you'd vote for them. But how many people are there here? How spread over how many districts? I don't mean to take up a lot of time, but I think that we have to recognize that what we're dealing with is inherently kind of a downer. My social life went to hell in a handbasket when I went to juvenile court. You go to social gatherings and they say, what do you do? Well, I'm in juvenile court. And I say, oh, that must be so depressing. By the way, I have to go get some more pretzels. But it's that sort of ability of people that don't know what goes on, do not know things as to how things work, do not know the costs, do not know what it really, really looks like. They don't know the courage that people in our system show. They don't know the resilience. They don't know the upside to it. Part of what we have to do is go tell them. When they go for pretzels, say, oh, I'll get the pretzels, you come with me. I mean, because if there's one thing that the policymakers listen to, they listen to people who can deliver votes. And if the public at large, if it maintains in this size group that's ringing the bell on this, you're never going to make a difference. You need 100 times more than this in order to make it go. And that's where the burden sits on us.